A lot of times in programming, you have to perform repetitive tasks. In other words, tasks you have to keep doing over and over again. You can do that using for loop. So in this case, I'm using for. This is a keyword. I'm saying for I in range 3. So basically, this line right here is saying that execute, oops, sorry, execute this statement three different times. And this line of code, this is the one it's going to execute three different times. So in this case, it's going to print hello world. Today I will learn Python three different times. You can see that one, two, and 3. And at the end, when it's done, it's going to print this final statement. It prints out this right here. In this particular instance, I is called an iterator. So in this case right here, you can even print out the value of I if you want to. So in this particular instance, I'm actually printing out the value of I. I'm saying iteration number and I'm printing out the value of I. And at this time, I'm also multiplying my I by 3 in this case. So what's going to happen is that I is going to iterate over different values of your range 4. In other words, range 4 is a list of numbers. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. By the way, range 4 is going to return total four numbers, starts with 0. So it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3. So in this case, my I is going to take the value 0, then it's going to take the value 1, then it's going to take 2, and then it's going to take 3. And this is why it's printing it like this. So the first one iteration number is 0, multiply 3 by 0, and the answer is 0 right here. Okay, then your I becomes 1. So iteration number 1, multiply iterated by 3. So your 3 multiply by I, which is 1, in this case is 3. Then you I becomes 2. Then iteration number 2 right here. That would be iteration number 2, multiply iterated by 3. In other words, 3 times I, 3 times 2 is 6. It prints out 6. And same thing, your I becomes 3. Now once your I it becomes 3, it does not go any further than that, because this right here, it controls how much it can take. Okay, then you have a while loop. So in while loop, you keep running until some condition is met. In this particular instance, in for loop, you're doing it finite number of times. In this case, you're doing it as many number of times as that condition is met, and this condition is specified over here. So in this instance, I'm saying my I equal to 0, this is another name for that is a counter. So while my I equal to 0, as long as my counter is less than 3, I want to print this message. The counter is I, and then multiply 3 by that counter. And then I'm incrementing my counter right here. So when I run this, it's going to print out like this. The counter is 0. So my first I is 0. This is how I'm defining. So in this case, I is 0. Is 0 less than 3? Yes, it is. It's going to print this statement right here. So it prints out this statement. Then it multiplies 3 by I, and the answer is 0. Then it increments I by 1. So now your I becomes equal to 1. So now it prints out the counter I. In this case, now remember, your 1 is less than 3, because this condition is true. It's going to execute this statement again. So in this case, it's going to say the counter is 1, multiply counter by 3. In this case, 3 times 1 is 3, and then increments I again by 1. So now your I becomes 2. And it's going to keep doing 1, 2, 3. At some point, this condition does not hold. As soon as this condition becomes false, this loop will stop executing. It's going to exit the loop. And then at the end, it's going to say, I'm out of for loop. Now let's talk about data structure. So there are four main data structures. There's a list, there's a tuple, set, and dictionary. Another name for that is a data container, because they hold or they contain your data. So the way you define your list is by using this square bracket. So let's say I have age, and these are the data for the age. Let's say somebody age is 21, 55, 31, and so on and so forth. So in this case, you can print out your age by just saying the age. The list is age, and that prints out my age right here. What if you want to access an element? Well, you can access the element too. So in this case, let's say you want to access an element at index 4. So this is index 0, this is index 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how it works. So in this case, the element at index 4 would be 74, this one right here, because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What if you want to see the type? You can see the type too, like what type this variable is, age. But in this case, it's going to print out that it's a list right here. Okay, now let's do with the tuple. So in this case, everything is same. The only thing that I'm changing is my bracket. I'm using round bracket now. So the moment you change this bracket from square bracket to round bracket, Python is going to treat this as a tuple. So in this case, it prints out the elements of the tuple. These are the elements. It prints out the element at index 4. The index 4 would be this right here. Sorry, this right here. This would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this case, it prints out the element at index 4 right here. And I also want to see the type. And in this case, it prints out tuple. Then there is a curly braces. This is for set. So if you use the curly braces, that's going to convert your element into set. And one of the interesting characteristic of set is that it will never hold any duplicate elements. It will remove duplicates. So for example, when I run this, let me just come over here and run this. Yeah. So when I run this, you can see that 31, there are two 31, but it's no longer displaying both 31. It's only displaying 131. This was not true in the case of tuple. Tuple displayed both 31. It allowed duplicate. Same thing with your list. List allowed duplicate. So coming back to this right here, so in this case, it has removed duplicate. So I print out the set. In this case, this is the set right here. And I also want to know the type. So in this case, the type is set. If you try to access an element by the index, it's going to throw an error because set does not allow you to retrieve an element by index. It is not subscriptable. Okay, let me comment this line out. Let's run this again. And there you go. Now then you have dictionary. So dictionary is a very special kind, and what it does, it actually holds values in a key and value pair. It also starts with curly braces, but the difference is each entry is separated by a key colon value pairs. So for example, let's say I want to create a dictionary of employees. That's going to hold the name, age, salary, is married. So these are my keys, and these are the corresponding values for each one of them. So in this case, if I print out my dictionary right here, the employee data, and I print the dictionary out, and if I run this, it's going to print out the employee data right here. The whole content of the dictionary gets displayed. What if I want to know the salary of an employee? Okay, so the way you access the salary is by typing the name of the dictionary, employee, and then open the square bracket, and inside the square bracket you specify the key that you whose value you want to access. In this case, I want to access the value of salary. So you type salary over here. So when you run this, it's going to give you the salary would be 30,000 for that employee. You can even see the type, what type this data is. In this case, the type of employee is dictionary. DICT is short for dictionary. One of the interesting things you can do with dictionary is you can store a dictionary in a list. So let's say I have three employees, employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. These are the corresponding data right here. And you can create a list of employees. So I create a list, and inside my list, I'm putting dictionary 1, dictionary 2, dictionary 3. So these are my employees. And then I print my employees right here. So in this case, when I run this, it's going to print these employees. So this is a list, and list actually holds three dictionaries inside. Okay, let's say you want to access an employee at index 0. That would be this employee right here. So if you run this, it's going to print out the employee that would be this employee right here. Employee 1, that would be Harry, age, salary 30,000. Harry, age 25, salary 30,000. All right. If you want to see what type that is, well, what type of element this container is, employees. Well, if you run this, it's going to give you, it's a list. Well, that makes sense because it is a list right here. It's a list holding containers in holding dictionary inside. And then you have functions. So let's take a look at a simple function. Let's say this is a greet function, and all it does, it prints out two different statements. So in this case, let's say, let me just come over here, remove this line. Now, the way you define a function by using def keyword. Def is a short for define, greet, open square, open round bracket, close the round bracket, and then you put a colon over here. Now, if I run this, nothing will happen because all it did was define the function. It did not call the function. So let's call the function now. So the way you call a function is just say greet, and then open the square bracket, sorry, open the curly, open the round bracket, close the round bracket, and this will call the function. And now if I run this, it's going to call this function. Now when it calls the function, whatever is present inside the function, it gets executed. So in this case, it executes that statement right here. Let's perform something interesting with this function. Let's say you want to add a function. So in this particular instance, I'm defining a function. This is the name of the function, and this is going to do a comma b. Is going to take a as a parameter and b as a parameter. It's going to take those two numbers and add them together, and then it's going to return the result right here. And then at the end, so let's just do this thing. Let me just come over here, remove this. Now when I run this, nothing will happen because all it did was define the function. Now let's actually use the function. Let's call the function. So in this case, I'm calling this function by specifying my a as 3 and my b as 4. So I'm calling add 3 comma 4. So your a becomes 3, your b becomes 4, and it becomes 3 plus 4 is 7. So result becomes 7, and then over here it returns the result. So your answer is 7. So your answer, it becomes 7. So function add, it prints out the answer, it comes out to be 7 right here. Now I'm going to talk about file operations. So there are two main operations you perform in a file. You read a file or you write to a file. So let's write to a file first. Suppose I have two text right here, text 1 and text 2. Text 1 says, hello, this is a great day about file read and write operations. And then text 2 says, show me how to write to a file. So first thing I do, I open up the file, I call this function, and in this function, you specify the name of the file that you want to open. And you want to open notes.txt and you specify W. W stands for write to the file. So in this case, this file that does not exist is going to create that file for you. So in this case, going to open up the file and then I'm writing to the file. So you call this file and inside this file there's an inbuilt method called write. You call the write and then you specify what you want to write to. I want to write text 1, which is this right here. So it's going to write text 1. I also want to write text 2 right here. So it's going to write this text 1 and text 2. At the end, when this operation is done, you want it to be closed. So I close the file. Now when I run this, and there you go, the file has been created. Now let's go take a look at the file. So this is the content of the file. Let me move this side so you can see. There you go. So it wrote, hello, this is a great day about file read and write operation. So it wrote this over here. And then at the next line, I did this next write operation that actually wrote this string right here. So it wrote this string over here. Okay. Then what if you want to read from the file? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read exactly the same file that I wrote to. So the way you read a file, you call this open again, and this time you specify the name of the file, and this time you specify R. R means read. Previously, I used W for writing. Now I'm using read. So you read the file, okay, and read the file into a variable content. So it's going to read the whole content into this variable, and then I'm closing the file. At the end, I want to print the content of the file. So when I run this, it's going to print out the content of the file. Now let's talk about error handling. A lot of times when you're doing programming, sometimes you come across a situation where error will happen. So let's simulate an error condition. Let's say my a equal to 0. I'm specifying my a equal to 0, and I want to divide your 10 by a. And I want to print out the result. So when I run this, it's going to give me an error because you cannot divide a number by 0. That's not possible. So what if you want to do something like this? What if you don't want your program to end? You want to move on to the next line, but you cannot over here because this right here line is stopping you to go forward. So you cannot execute this statement right now. So there is a solution for that. You can actually handle this error. And the way you do, you catch this error. In this case, my error is zero division error. I'm going to catch this error. Now what I would do, I say a equal to 0 and I say try this right here. Okay, try to run this statement. If this doesn't run, then you catch that error. You catch that exception. Another name for that error is exception. So you catch that exception. And which exception are you catching? This one right here, zero division error. So I specify the exception you want to catch, and then you can print out your customized error message. So it's going to print out this, and then at the end, it's going to keep moving with the code. So the code is not going to stop. It will keep running. So if I run this, you can see that. Now it says if I say a equal to 0, try result 10 divided by a. 10 divided by a is not possible. So this will never get executed. It's going to throw an error. And this line right here is responsible for grabbing, the catching that error. And then it prints out this line. You cannot divide by 0, but I will give you a pass. You cannot divide by 0, but I'll give you a pass. And then it says moving on with the code. It goes to the next line of code. Previously, it could not because this line stopped it from going further.